Good day, everyone. The question I'll be addressing today is why men aren't valued in a modern society. But before delving into that issue, it's important to state that there's a difference between being valuable and being valued. Because obviously, men are valuable, no one is disputing that fact. However, being valued as a human being is more of an unconditional virtue, which is linked to the inherent dignity of the human person as a fundamental right that is legally and universally recognized on the basis of the common humanity of mankind, as affirmed by international law instruments like the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and also the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. So, the right to human dignity is a natural and an inalienable human right. That is, it can't be sold. That is the meaning of inalienability. Thus, from a human rights perspective, value and dignity are relatively synonymous concepts. So, the right to human dignity is an inalienable human right. But the problematic issue is that inalienability is incompatible with commodification. On that account, in order to understand the state of affairs in this modern society, you need to juxtapose that fact with the neoliberal ideology that dominates the world today. To explain these dynamics, I'll refer you to a video I posted on this channel titled Love is Dead. I advise you all to watch it because it will give more context on the issues I'm addressing in this video. So, neoliberalism is all about commodification. That is, assessing everything, including human beings, based on the qualification of economic value. Now, that is a very important point. Thus, neoliberalism is also aimed at the commodification of inalienable human rights. I'll repeat that again. Neoliberalism is also aimed at commoditizing inalienable human rights. So, as a consequence of the rise of the modern culture of neoliberalism and the concomitant exploitative commoditization of the human person, the inalienable rights of the human person are progressively losing their normative value, at least in the popular consciousness of this modern society. It's important to note that one of the modes of operation of the neoliberal agenda is behavior engineering, that is through the perception economy, which is a kaleidoscopic agenda that possesses legal, administrative, as well as political dimensions, as exposed in the works of Karl Marx, Joan Rodriguez, among other authors. So, neoliberalism is all about a malignant culture of commoditization that dominates the modern perception economy because thoughts become reality via the influence of such views and ideologies on people's choices and decisions. So the neoliberal agenda is like a globalized cult of idolatry that promotes the narrative that the only valuable thing is money, not love, not human beings, not religion, not family. The only valuable things are finance and consumerism, which is a concomitant of you know the pedestalization of wealth and economic gain that procures a hedonistic, exploitative and predatory lifestyle. That is also the basis of the concept of primitive accumulation, which produces a lot of paradoxical outcomes. For example, a modern society that is founded on or predicated on the ideology of primitive accumulation is bound to transmogrify into a brutish form of civilization, if I can put it that way. Because primitive accumulation and civilization, they are like two counterintuitive concepts, but they exist paradoxically in the same era, in the same system, as a consequence of the neoliberal ideology of commodification and the pedestalization of wealth and economic resources over humanity. This liberal ideology is also what procures the paradox of plenty, which is a reality that can be explained in the context of the resource cost theory, where you have resource rich countries that are extremely poor. That is another paradox. For instance, Africa is one of the resource richest continents in the world, which nevertheless is still the poorest continent in the world, regardless of its natural wealth and resources, which is obviously a consequence of corruption and exploitation. Another example of the trend of inhumanity is epitomized in the fact that, using Africa as an example again, poor Africans have no access to healthcare, because money is the value that is prioritized over human life. And this is a trend that is not only limited to the health sector. The health sector is just one of numerous examples. Because if you are poor and you can't afford healthcare, you can't get access to healthcare because the wealth is pedestalized over preservation of human life. Consequently, a culture that is fueled by exploitation has no room for humanity. So it's no surprise that people are losing value because a mind that focuses on exploitation pedestalizes materialism over humanity. I've been restating this point throughout this discussion, which metaphorically leads the mind deeper and deeper into a hedonistic black hole that influences perception and shapes how we view reality. Because pedestalizing economic gain over humanity is equivalent to the pedestalization of depravity over virtue, and that is the origin of corruption. Corruption is simply a byproduct of a psychopathic sense of entitlement, which is absolutely repulsed by justice, repulsed by or repulsed to, how should I put it, which is repulsed by justice, reciprocity, and fairness. So be rest assured that a society that operates based on such vices will be more than willing to steal everything from you, including your humanity. So, in conclusion, I'll summarize this whole discussion in one quote, and that is, you know, the moment when society prioritizes economic gain over humanity is the beginning of the end of that society. That is just the crux of the story. I also say that the prioritization of wealth leads to primitive accumulation, while on the other hand, the prioritization of humanity engenders distributive justice. So that's all. God bless.